welcome back to the New Bridge Radio Show on WLTK-DB. Let's talk. I am your host, Kevin Mackey, and we are connecting you to what's next in your life. And we're here to remind you that you are important to this world, and we sure are glad to have you along on this episode of the New Bridge Radio Show. Remember, you can catch us live on our station website. All you need to do is just go on over to www.wltkdb.com and you can watch the show live. You can also catch us on YouTube and Facebook. All you got to do is go to the search and type in WLTK-DB, and you'll be able to find our station pages on either of those platforms. Remember, if you would like to get in touch with the New Bridge Radio Show, you can always email us. You can catch us at thenewbridgeradioshow@gmail.com. Let us know what you like about the show, and let us know, if you must, what you don't like about the show, and let us know if you would like to be a guest on the New Bridge Radio Show. We love connecting to people who have figured out how to connect to what was next in their life or what came next in their life. Tonight on the New Bridge Radio Show, we are excited to introduce you to someone that really connected to what was next in her life, and in a way that probably wasn't necessarily expected, but definitely important. Our guest tonight is a health and wellness advocate. She is the founder of Cathy's Crawley Composters, Cathy's Sprouters, and Cathy's Laughter Club. She is a multi-award-winning environmental innovator who uses workshops and inspirational speaking to motivate people to live a more sustainable life. Cathy is an avid cyclist and gardener, and her working title is great. It is Cathy Crawley, Laughing Bean Queen, and I love that. She is Cathy Nesbitt, and we are very privileged to have her on our show. How are you doing, Cathy?
Hallelujah. Thank you, Kevin. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I'm super excited to have you. I wanted to just start off and tell you something, that we have a couple of things in common. As I came to know your story, I too went and decided to, get a college degree.
Okay.
And I did so, while working full time. And so I went to school nights and
Right.
weekends in a college program, and it took me 14 years to do it.
14. Okay. I have you beat by a year, but yeah, stay in school, right? You'll get there.
When I was listening to you talking about it, it made such a difference in my life to go and do it, to go through and do all the coursework, and it was not at all a waste of time. So if there's anybody listening and you're even thinking, oh, maybe college could bring me some changes, it definitely can. It changed my world, and it definitely changed your world as well.
Yeah, it's the people you meet. I mean, you go at night and, as you have time and maybe the money, depending where you live and how much it is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And and a lot of times, so when I did it, the company I was working for at that time paid for my entire degree. I ended up graduating debt free.
Hallelujah. Oh my gosh. Ideal.
I got my degree, and it was well worth it. Education has opened a lot of doors, and it's always a good thing to use to get to what's next in your life.
To get to what's next. I love that segue. Oh my gosh. I love that you have that as part of your show, connecting you to what's next. It's such a beautiful thought, something, just to ponder. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, I love talking to people who whatever is next in their life turned out to be nothing like what they thought.
Yeah.
And it certainly is in your case, because you found tell us a little bit, Cathy, about what you were doing before you connected to composting.
Well, I was a secretary for 20 years, but after that, I was a social worker. I got my psych degree after 15 years. We talked about that. And people were like, what are you going to do with a psych degree? Like a little BA, you need a doctor to do something. And I said, you'll see, I'll use it. And I got a job at a group home working with special needs folks, young adults with developmental disabilities. And I really thought I had come home. I loved that work. I couldn't work with management. Curses.
Right.
Right. So I left that first foundation and went to it was a school. I was a freelance behavior management specialist. It doesn't even fit on a business card. And then I got injured at work. I only had one client. I got injured at work. I was ineffective. And anyway, came home. There was an ad in the paper, and and I left the industry 15 years to get my degree, and then just over a year in the industry, and then just a year in the industry, and then I left. Now I'm a worm farmer. Oh well.
I know it. I came to know your story, and knew you had left, but you had an interesting conversation with your husband. Like, you know what I think I'm going to do? I think I might start a worm farm. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I think somehow deep down, worms. There's a lot of puns and stuff. Don't worry.
Right.
I think deep down, I think as an entrepreneur, I saw a problem, which was waste. Our landfill closed I'm just north of Toronto, or the largest city in Canada, and so when our landfill closed, 6 million people. You gotta do something with it. Although we're a pretty large country, Canada, we couldn't find a place to site a new landfill, and we started exporting our garbage to the U.S. Almost 200 garbage trucks at the beginning, and I was like, "Holy!" Like as an avid gardener, I just saw all of these resources, all of this food waste. So it's food waste and paper. That can be composted. All of your organic matter can be turned into, we call it garbage, but it can really it's a resource that can be turned into something much more valuable.
Exactly.
And the worm composting is done inside. So, for people, they're like, oh, if I live in an apartment, good, it's designed for you.
Exactly.
People say to me, oh, I can't compost because I live in an apartment. It's like, no, this is for you. Thanks for saying you live in a condo. Now I know you're my market.
Exactly. So I know your relationship with red wiggler worms, started out maybe a little squirmish, but
Yeah.
it evolved, didn't it?
It did. It certainly, talk about not ending up the way I thought. When I understood that worms were going to play such an important role, and I came over my own kind of fear factor of ew, worms in the house and all of those issues. I mean, I had all of those, I believe, because this is why I was put on earth, like to tell people how simple this is. I was afraid. I had a horrible experience. And look at now, it's my business 19 years. Wow.
Right.
Right. But I think when it's so important, such an important thing, deep down, I must have known this was bigger than me. I think really this must somehow this it was like her. Because it's not easy. Like, so once I realized, oh my gosh, these red wigglers, they eat half their weight per day. So if you have a pound of worms, half a pound per day of food waste, or 3 to 4 pounds per week, substantial. We all eat, we all create food waste.
Right.
And it's one of the ways we can mitigate climate change. So I was like, wow, everybody needs this. So I'm going to start a business. Oh, well, won't this be great? So I start my business thinking, I'm going to be in the money. This is going to be so great. Hallelujah. I've got a solution. This is going to be so simple. I forgot that worms were the problem. Literally, like I was just like, oh, this is so great. Everybody needs this. But, we don't buy what we need. We buy what we want.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And what's interesting about it is when you discovered this and discovered just the nature of worms and how useful they were, was how many years was that before you actually started the business? Like, was it a slow, gradual process? And you were like, hey, did you do a lot of research?
Yeah, great. So I moved out of Toronto in 93, bought a house and had a garden. And as an avid gardener and composter, I knew the value. And a teacher friend in 93, like I bought my house and then I had a space. A teacher friend asked me to look after her worm bin. My friend had worms in her classroom as an education, as part of, the teaching. And I was like, ew, worms in the house. But I come from, ew,
Right.
but
Who
you
wants
want me
worms
to
in
what?
there?
Oh, all right, go away, have a good time. I'll look after your babies. No, I come from a place where we should try something. I want to try it. Don't tell me if it's going to work or not. I want to try it for myself. So I took on I took it on. I said, okay, I'll do this, because I knew the value of the compost. And it was horrible. I mean, it was a bad experience. I had fruit flies, and because I didn't manage it. That's what I learned. It was like, okay, I did that, and then I'm like, ooh, not again. Okay, bye-bye. And I totally forgot about it. Like, there it was, boom, that seed was planted. Like, pay attention to the things that come in across in your life, because you don't know what did that mean? I don't know. I didn't know at that time, right? Then fast forward, getting my psych degree, the path to where you want to go is not straight.
Exactly.
Right? It's like skippity do over here. And so, off I go to the group home, only there for, 10 homes and a farm. I propose a composting program, and then I can't work with management. I get an offer and I chase the money. I go to a place, freelance behavior management specialist, get injured at work, can't work there. Don't have a safety net because I was freelance. That means you don't have benefits.
Exactly.
It means you get extra money, but then you can't eat your money. So there we go. So then, then there was an ad in the paper. Oh my gosh, like, talk about synchronicities and how the universe provides when you're looking. I came home, I was stressed, I was injured. One client, I didn't feel effective after I was injured. And I came home and there was an ad in the paper, and it said, are you a woman? Do you have a business idea? Check. I kind of had a business idea. I mean, our landfill closed so the worms in 93, I looked after the worms. Then, I got the job at the group home, whatever. And then in 2002, the landfill for Toronto closed. Right. So no, I didn't do anything from 93 to 2002. But then, I got injured, and then there was an ad in the paper that said, woman business idea. And it was a business course to write a business plan, 6-month course. And I turned to my husband. I said, I'm quitting my job. I'm taking this course. I'm going to start a worm business. Like, we need it, right? A solution for indoor, like those 6 million people that live in apartments. Now they can manage some of their waste. Hallelujah. This is going to be easy. It'll be fun.
So when you started doing this, when you actually started entertaining the idea of bringing worms into your house, was your husband hip to the idea, or was he like, what?
Oh, I think I missed a part there. I think I missed a part to the story. So what happened? I proposed a composting project or program at the group home. And I was thinking composting, outside composting, because they had a farm. Like, we're going to just, mix it in with the manure and whatever, and everything will be fine. And the greenhouse manager said, hey, why don't we do worm composting? And I was like, the memories of, have you ever done something and it didn't quite work out? And you're like, oh, I'm not going to do that again.
Right.
And then somebody says, hey, Kevin, why don't we, whatever it was? And you're like, oh, no, you get the pit, that feeling like, oh, no, that didn't work last time. I don't want to do that again.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. So, but that happened. Then I was like, wait a minute. It's an institution. They're not going to get worms tomorrow. They got to have meetings and get money and come up with all the objections. Why not to do it? So then I started to do research. Thank you for that big, long intro to research. So I did research, and I was like, wow. And I had a shift. I was afraid of worms. Not that they would, they would hurt me, just like, they're gross or icky. Right. When I started to research, I was like, wow, these worms, we need them. Like, there they are right under our feet, kind of literally, and they eat half their weight. They turn garbage into black gold, and they can fix the soil and fix our garbage and take the smell out. Like, it's just like, oh, and I'm the one to put worms everywhere. And then, oh, wait a minute, everybody's afraid of worms like I was.
Exactly. Like no, like people listening to us tonight are probably like thinking, did she just say bring worms into the house? And I can see them, the gears turning. Oh, no, there's no way I can do that. But there is a benefit to it. There is something that a reward, especially to people who have or love house plants or any kind of plant. Just tell us a little bit about that. What worms can do as far as house plants.
Yeah, so the worms actually convert that material, the food waste, the paper, into like it's like plant food. So it's just their poop, like it's the compost, right? And then you put that in your soil, and then it's plant ready food. The roots can just take up that food, and so the nutrients go back up into the plant. And so whatever we're growing, if we're growing fruits and vegetables, oh my gosh, fantastic.
Right. So now, do you recall when you first started using the fertilizer? Were you shocked? Were you like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe what a difference that made"?
Yeah, so yes, and I'm an avid composter, and so I've been composting. I just think composting is such a magic process. So compost is great. Worm compost is like compost on steroids. It's just more nutrient ready. So yes, when I started using the worm compost, it was like, holy moly. But as a business model, I didn't choose the right thing. I didn't have people to guide me, except for that program.
Right.
So I decided to put worms in every living space. A better business model would have been, so once I sell you worms breed more than rabbits. So they're just not cute and cuddly. So people are like, oh, but don't worry, they stop breeding. I'll talk about that in a sec. But so when I sell a pound of worms to somebody, and the worms are reproducing, and I meet people and they're like, oh, my worms are doing so great. I gave some to my neighbor and sent some to my kids' school. It's like, stop giving your worms away. It's bad for my business. So I don't have repeat customers. The 80-20 rule doesn't apply to my business.
Right.
For that stream. I mean, now I fixed that in 20 years. Thank goodness I got smart. And I became, I ebbed and flowed. Again, I think, at one point, well, many points there, I was like, this is too hard. When, I can't continue. This is ridiculous. The worms are eating better than me, and they eat the rotting stuff.
Right. Every business person comes to that point. Oh my God.
Right? Like, wow, is this worth it? And then, then I'd get a nudge, and I chose media as my marketing strategy. I've had hundreds of articles and TV, radio, documentary. But if you're afraid of worms, that's what I realized where my psych degree is coming in handy is I'm meeting people as adults who were traumatized as children, like in the schoolyard or by a sibling. After a rainy day, somebody chased them around with a worm, or I don't know, fishing, traumatic incident. I don't know. Right. And you carry that. We carry this, stuff with us.
Right.
And then we add as adults, so if you're afraid of something, and I know you know this, Kevin, you're not inviting it into your house. You're not like, oh, I'm afraid of worms. Let me get over my fear. Right. You're just like, oh, I'm not reading that article. I'm not listening to that thing. So so I kind of glossed over the whole thing so that so we could keep people retained for a bit. And I hope they're still here.
Right.
Because we're fun. I think this is a fun interview.
Right. They will be different. So, Cathy, when you first brought worms into your house, did you know what you were going to be giving them, feeding them, making them thrive on?
Yes, I thought it would be, like my household food scraps and paper. But then, of course, I was getting like 50 pounds of worms. If they eat half their weight, I needed 25 pounds of food. I did several research projects. At the beginning, it was so much fun. I was so inventive. or creative, not inventive. I didn't invent stuff. But I would go to coffee shops. Like it seems Canadians don't know how to make coffee, so we have tons of coffee shops, and so they're and they're drive-through. I mean, they're really not environmental, but never mind. And people don't bring their own cup, but okay, that's another whole story. So I collected the coffee grounds from a coffee shop, and that was a whole nother story. Like, wow, I can't even remember now. I think it was like 3,000 pounds. 3,000.
Oh my gosh.
No, 3,000 pounds. Oh, it was in a month. Like, no, it was 1,500 pounds of coffee grounds in 1 month.
Wow.
And it was like, wow, like insane amount. And that was from the slowest coffee shop. I was like, what is the biggest, busiest one? They didn't want to play with me, which is kind of part of where my psychology comes out. Okay.
Yes. Well,
right.
I definitely want to ask you more about how you started in all of this. So, but we have to take a quick break, and we have to go and listen to some words from our wise sponsor. So we will be right back on the New Bridge Radio Show.
Looking to launch your new masterpiece? Then try something new with Moonbow Publishing and Publications. At Moonbow, we have a strong desire to serve authors in a powerful and meaningful way. After all, you've poured your heart and soul into your writing, and we fully understand and respect that. Remember this: you will own the copyright to your work. You will have the final say on your work before published. Even after all of that, we've saved the best for last. We won't take a percentage sold. Nope, not a penny. Excited about MoonbowPublications.com yet? We thought so. Take advantage of our company's services like book editing, formatting, and covers, publishing, and photography. Moonbow Publishing and Publications has everything you're looking for in a company. Remember, we will not keep any commissions. We are a boutique publishing company focusing on spiritual, health and wellness, and personal growth genres. So come and see what we can do for you at MoonbowPublications.com. That's MoonbowPublications.com. Moonbow Publications, a new kind of publishing company.
Welcome back to the New Bridge Radio Show on WLTK-DB. Let's talk. I'm your host, Kevin Mackey, and we are here talking to Cathy Nesbitt, and we are talking about worms. And no matter what you think of worms or felt about worms before the show, you are definitely going to feel very differently about worms when we're done talking to Cathy, because she is a worm wrangler and a worm expert. Now, I mentioned before we started, Cathy, that I watched your documentary, which is available on your website, Squirm, and I thought during in the documentary, I saw you hauling around these huge bins of worms around the country and speaking to different groups, in school-aged children and various people from different walks of life. And what was interesting about the documentary is people's reactions to the worms at some point. But I really liked when the kids saw the worms. Did that surprise you at how enthusiastic they were?
So beautiful. Yeah, it's I think the kids really get it. They automatically no. I can hear me now. It's so beautiful watching the kids get the message. Like, they might be apprehensive at first, especially depending what background I don't mean background, I just mean how they were raised.
Right.
If it's like, oh, don't touch that, it's dirty. If they've been really clean and lots of clean washing things, and of course you got to wash your hands and everything. I don't mean that. The whole other show. And so they might be apprehensive. During my workshops, I have the kids hold the grand finale is holding the worms. And it's really fun. I say to them, if you want to hold the worms, put your hands together. I'll put one in. And, sometimes it's the teachers that are really afraid, which is really fun. Or parents, they're kind of like, and it's not logical, our fear of worms, because they don't have bones. They can't bite us. Their poop is black gold. I mean, they're food for lots of animals. Pure protein, and we could eat them. I've never in myself, but
me either. But I do know that there are some that fry them up just like chicken.
Yeah, it's all perception or perspective or whatever you call it.
Right, exactly. So I love their reaction to it, and what I also liked about the movie was. You go through the steps of composting and how important it is and how it affects the environment and how it makes things sustainable. And one thing that was so interesting, and I mentioned it before we started the show, is you made this composting area just out of cinder blocks, and I think that is so clever. Tell us a little bit about that, because this is something simple that even if people don't like the worms, it's something simple they can do in their yard that can make a huge impact. And some people don't even know what to do with their leaves.
Yeah, leave them. Stop blowing them around, first of all. Okay, but that's just my opinion. Okay. Yeah, so the cinder blocks, you just put them kind of in a U shape, I guess you would say. They're really heavy, so you want to put them where you're going to put them. And it's just for your leaves. If you crush them up better, and you just kind of put all your leaves there, it's not going to attract any rodents or anything, because you're not going to put food waste in that one. It's just open, so it rains on it, it suns on it. If you're in a snowy area in the winter, it gets frozen. It's fine. And then eventually, nothing to be done on your part. Eventually, that just naturally wears down, and it's just this black, crumbly. I'm doing this. I know it's radio. You can just like go through it with your fingers, and it's just so beautiful, like black baby powder. And that's just, all the nutrients naturally, right? Nothing happens. So there's all different types of composting, right? There's hot composting. There's, cold composting, just leaving it. There's getting the right carbon nitrogen, which is the leaves, browns, and, then your food scraps or the greens, green grass and green, whatever. Yeah.
But so the worm composting, though, is called vermicomposting.
Correct.
And when you talk about vermicomposting and you are speaking to people that live in small spaces like apartments and stuff, how do you kind of pitch the idea of, doing a sustainability project like this?
Yeah, that was probably one of the errors that I made in the beginning, thinking that, people wanted what I had, but they didn't. Just kind of going at it like, oh, you have to have this, and my energy's so big. I think I scared a lot of people at the beginning. It's just massaging it. It's just really, now I get it. Like now with all these years, I'm still here, so I figured it out. It's really getting to the core of what are they afraid of? Like, it's with any business, just worms have another added element. It's because they convert our food scraps and our paper into soil, so we can grow more nutrient-rich food. During this time that we're in, Canada imports about 60% of our food. When our borders close, it's a problem for our food supply. And I know they're talking about shortages, and all of that. There's no food shortage. I don't believe there's food shortages in the world. I believe it is a supply. It's distribution, and there's politics around why people aren't getting what they need. But anyway, during this time, demand has increased because people realize, the schools were closed, so it was a project for the kids at the beginning. And then it was like, oh, wow, this is going to go on longer than 2 weeks. We better think about growing some food or being a little bit prepared. What do we need to do? Oh, we need soil. What do we need to do? We need to, oh, wow. So it kind of became more important. So I'm excited about this going forward because I've been waiting 19 years to be this busy, really. It's been a long, hard, I can't say hard. It's been like a magic carpet ride. I've really enjoyed this time. Otherwise I wouldn't still be here doing it. It's just now, the younger folks, they were born into this climate crisis. So they're really looking for ways. They're looking for our food to get better.
Right.
I think there's a lot of factors that brought it to this time where it's like, thank goodness I stayed in it because it's needed.
You know what, Cathy? All you Canadians, you are really teaching us. Because you know what? There's another group. There's a group of two guys, Canadians, that live in Nova Scotia, who they kind of got trapped because of the pandemic. They were traveling around the world, and they kind of got a little trapped in Nova Scotia, and they had a little plot of land. And just out of sheer boredom and others, they started building like this off-grid, house and living environment. At first, they were just living in an RV, but they started learning about composting and growing their own food. And which, I know if they learned about the worm component of this, that this would be this would be in the so just starting out, being novices in this, being, in their 20s, and learning how to grow vegetables and stuff, and building these raised platforms, and
Beautiful.
they have been getting like thousands and thousands of views
Oh, I love
on their
it.
channel,
Love it.
because they've been learning how to not only raise food, but they created a pond, for water, and just, doing research on YouTube and finding out how to do this. They are living off grid at the moment. They are powering everything
Love it.
themselves off solar panels. And here in America, there's kind of a fear that, oh, what would happen if the grid suddenly, got taken over by terrorists? And it's like, well, we know from these two young Canadians, we don't need the grid.
Right? Yeah.
Uh,
It's hopeful, Kevin. I think I'm meeting so many.
mhm.
Education is what I do, and so I meet all kinds of amazing. We can't, here's what I believe: we can't have solution without problem.
Right.
So right now we've got a whole host of problems. So it's exciting time to be alive because now you can come up with solution. I mean, I kind of say that tongue in cheek. There are so many problems. I wish there weren't so many. But really, it can't be like, oh, I have this basket of solutions. If only problem would come along.
Right. That's why, we've kind of lived in a weird place where we've never had to think about what happens to the food we throw away. We just, the garbage man comes and gets it, and we never put any thought to it. And maybe, like, I don't know if the trash is the same in Toronto, but we have bins for everything. We separate and put all, and that's not that's kind of doing an okay job, but we could do so much more and use that more wisely to do other things and live better and grow our own food, really.
Yeah, imagine if we didn't have to truck all that stuff around.
Exactly.
If at least that portion, the recycling programs, they're all, I don't know what it's like in the US, but each municipality, each town has a different rules. So one place you can put styrofoam, the other one you can put the black things. It's a mess. So if somebody moves from one town to another, they're like, Well, we could put this in my old town, so I'm tossing it in. It's like, well, now you contaminated the bin. Like now you contaminated the load. You know, and I know people don't understand that, and I know a lot about the whole garbage cycle. It's just we're not taught how to do it, and we're not taught to minimize even what we're producing. We're taught to consume and to just buy, and that's going to get us out of everything if we just buy more stuff. But
Right.
no.
Right, exactly. But it's interesting when you suddenly see people who are dealing with trying to kind of make themselves more comfortable and dealing with problems that they never even thought about, like, oh, how do gardens grow, or how do we fertilize, or why does it look, when people are dealing with plants and how to make their plants healthy, then it's a whole different show, isn't it? And how to get rid of rainwater so it doesn't flood your camper.
Right. Yeah, I know but it's so hopeful, because when you do get it and you take the time, because that means you're slowing down. You can't be on your technology when you're composting or when you're in the garden growing stuff, right? You're right in there. And by the way, folks, there are antibacterial, antidepressant bacteria in the soil, microbes, antibacterial microbes in the soil. So you got to be in the soil with your hands, like not gloves. Get in there.
Yeah, absolutely right. And there are aerosols too that come from composting that have health benefits and healing benefits that actually help um, humans connect and be better, because because plants are, I think, like 90% of all medicine is made plant-based in essence.
Right.
And so it is a connection that I think people are discovering anew, that it's one of the things that we've kind of come to know since we've had this strange couple of years of lockdown
Yeah.
and finding it out. So one thing I definitely want to ask you about your worms is, um, did you come to find that there were worms that worked better for your business, that were a little bit easier? Like, are there different species of worms that are more beneficial?
There are. So there are thousands of types of worms. Only
Hmm.
4 have been identified as being optimum. So you're looking for surface dwellers. The red wigglers are kind of the optimum ones.
Hmm.
There's a hybrid kind of worm. It's not hybrid, but a hybrid kind of worm called European nightcrawler,
Hmm.
and it's a bigger worm, and also a composting worm. So for somebody that's looking for a bait worm and a composting worm, the Euro would be better, because the red wigglers are quite small. Although I understand that they're good for trout, like for salmon and whatever,
Hmm.
fishing, like for stream fishing. I think I'm not a fisher, so I don't know. Um, and then so it depends on where you are, what your climate is.
Hmm.
There's African night crawlers, which are, I've never seen them, but I understand that they're really quite big. They're more like eel size is how I imagine them, and they're quite sensitive. So I've heard people saying they've climbed up all the walls, like the if the conditions aren't quite right.
Hmm.
And then Perionyx, which is a tropical worm.
Yeah, well, there's a type of nightcrawler worm here in Washington, especially as you get closer to the water,
Mm.
closer to the sound. And we used to live in a house pretty close to Puget Sound, and sometimes you in the summer when you would go out, when you go out at night, we had a golden retriever, and you'd have your flashlight and you would move it across the lawn. All of a sudden, the lawn would be moving because it would be all of these huge night crawlers
Mm.
going back into the ground. And what was interesting is how fast they are. Like, they are super duper super fast. Like, bam, they're gone.
Yeah, so you have to have respect for those worm pickers, the ones that go and pick those worms.
Mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, as you started your worm farm and started raising your own worms, what did you find was most difficult about that process? What did you find really challenging in order to get them going?
So many factors. Yeah, because it was like, how do you get the balance? Like how many worms you have to have if I want to
Mhm,
sell them and I'm selling the worms and not the compost, but I'm still making the compost, so I still have to manage that.
mhm,
Right? So it's managing that and then getting enough food. So I talked about the coffee grounds and I did a grocery store project. So I'm like, I need more food. I need more than coffee grounds because I did a project with manure. So I was collecting I was collecting horse manure. I live in a two bedroom little house, by the way. I do have a little bit of a property, but less than an acre. I mean, it's just a teeny
mhm.
kind of in town property. And I was bringing home manure. I was like, oh, thank goodness my neighbors kind of like me.
Right, right.
And then I realized, oh my gosh, at one point I had killed one whole batch of worms because I had put horse manure and coffee grounds. I was like, oh, I'll just give them more food. Like, that's a smart thing. And
Mhm.
then I realized, oh my gosh, I nitrogened my worms to death.
Oh man.
Oh, so like lots of heartbreaking things, like money wise, like it's like, but also, the death of all those worms. And it was like, oh my gosh, so much learning.
Hmm.
Yeah, but valuable, right? Yeah,
Right.
all good learning. So what was the hardest? Just space and how do we manage the time? And then how do we get customers? We got to do all the stuff.
Right.
We got to get the food and I felt like, wow, if we could just be, have someone doing each of these stations, like a real company.
Hmm. Right.
And then I started doing education because I was like, people don't even want what I have. Like, so that now we got all this stuff. Now it's like, oh crap, nobody wants what we have now. So then had to go back to kind of creating the market. Like the market was here, we needed
Hmm.
it,
Hmm.
but we didn't know it wasn't in our conscious yet until our landfill closed. And it's like, oh my gosh, we can't export all that garbage. It's bad for the planet. Meanwhile, they're saying it costs us too much money.
Right.
Like it costs a ton, right? Like bye tax dollars. Oh, it's okay.
Right.
It's okay. The people will just pay us more.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Ridiculous. I mean, really, I think the whole thing, I was like, this is ridiculous program. Who came up with this? Like, why don't they put me in charge? But then it's like, the worms are so simple, Kevin. They
Hmm.
come from nature. Really, who can make money from that? So I believe the challenge with the worms is that they're not high tech enough.
Right. Right. Exactly. Um, and I think that we're maybe it was maybe it was new old knowledge that has been newly discovered.
Right, exactly. Exactly. Yes. My grandparents composted, but then it kind of skipped a generation when it became, more packaged goods and things were convenient and everybody was working and there was no time for, proper cooking.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. So uh it looks like Todd is going to have to leave. Something's come up for him. So Kathy,
Oh, Todd.
Todd is our producer of the New Bridge Radio Show. So Kathy, real quick, can you tell us how people can find you on the web?
Yes, absolutely. Probably my worm website is the best. It's 19 years. It's Cathy'sComposters.com. And yeah, everything's there. Kathy with a C.
Mhm. Well, Kathy, let me tell you, it has been a real treat having you on the New Bridge Radio Show to talk about a subject that most people might be squeamish about, but are probably more appreciative now. I wanted to also mention your documentary on your website, which I thought was absolutely amazing, and shows these nice and very productive composting strategies that you have on there, and also those great little enthusiastic kids that wanted to know more about the worms.
Yeah, that's from 2008, so it's dated, but still relevant,
Yes.
yeah, I think it's timeless in a way. I
Right.
still have that cinder block composter, by the way.
Nice. I am definitely doing that as well. Well, Kathy, it has been a real treat getting to know you and having you on the show. I want to thank everybody for joining us on this episode of the New Bridge Radio Show. Next week, we will be talking about anxiety with Gina Ryan. So until then, stay safe, and we'll see you next week on the New Bridge Radio Show.